In preparation for painting the parts, we use our masking paper, TCP 900, or painter's tape interchangeably depending on what is handy at the time. Our masking paper will hold any size part. Separate the pieces you will spray the same color and mount on the masking paper or painter's tape and put aside to paint later on. Just press the parts onto the material holding the parts. Note, on parts where both sides need to be painted, such as the fuel tanks, do one side and after painting and drying, repeat with the second side. On a large piece of masking paper, TCP 900, we are setting up the fuselage and some smaller parts, which will be painted aluminum. The wings need to be masked on the surface since they will be orange yellow on the top. In this chapter, after sanding all the components for our F4F-3 Wildcat build, the first parts to be painted are for the cockpit. These parts are painted in TCP 1250 interior green. The inside of our Wildcat cowl is also being painted interior green, per the instructions provided by the kit manufacturer Hobby Boss. We are using a dual action siphon feed Vega 2000 airbrush with a medium tip. The air pressure is set at 24 psi for this part of the process because a slightly lower pressure to the airbrush affords us better control of the spray pattern over the parts. On the larger pieces, such as the fuselage and wings, we will of course be spraying our paint at 30 psi, as we recommend. Spray all the pieces on all sides by going back and forth slowly across everything. Note that we have attached an adapter to the 1-ounce bottle that itself is attached to the airbrush. This is because we use TCP 1250 interior green for the majority of pre-World War II and wartime aircraft models. The adapter allows us to spray any color right from the bottle because our paints are airbrush ready without needing to thin them. Do not be concerned about overspraying the outside of the cowl, as it will be painted aluminum. To prevent the inside from being overpainted with aluminum, we will use small pieces of paper towel watered up later on. You will see this technique later in this video. Please note that the front of the cowl will be painted in our chosen section color also later in this video. Safety Yellow TCP 311 is being painted on the small part assembly here. This piece, I believe, is a blower which is attached to the firewall. Note that we are spraying directly from stock without thinning the paint. All of the Tru-Color paint sprayable colors are designed to be sprayed at 25 to 35 psi without the need for adding any thinner. This small piece, which is part of the engine, is being painted TCP 256 light primer. Since the instructions call for a gray color being applied, but doesn't specify if this is a light or dark color, we have applied an artistic license to make it a light gray. Again, we are spraying directly from stock using a 2-ounce bottle of TCP 256 light primer with an adapter. We have both the 1 and 2-ounce bottle adapters in stock. Now we're painting TCP-712 metallic black on the piston. This is for the engine compartment build and will complete the engine compartment in total. The propeller is the only part that needs to be painted TCP-010 gloss black. We are spraying this color at 28 psi to get full coverage on the entire piece. Both sides of the tips will be decal blue, yellow, red, with the red at the tip, which was predominant in the pre-World War II era. We are using a new technique we were informed about at a recent IPMS Phoenix chapter meeting. One modeler told us he first painted black on the aircraft, dried it for an hour, then painted the aluminum. He stated it made the aluminum stand out. TCP-010 gloss black, to which I added 2% adhesion promoter, is being sprayed at 30 psi with the Vega 2000 airbrush with a medium tip. Note that we are spraying slowly back and forth across all of the parts, the fuselage, wing bottoms, stabilizers, etc. We turn the cardboard holding the painter's tape with the pieces around to complete painting all edges of every part. On the parts where we have to paint the other side, such as the stabilizers, we will remount later on and paint. Using the same modified TCP-010 gloss black mix, we are painting both sides of the rudder for the F4F-3 Wildcat that is going to be built and assigned to the USS Wasp. Note that trying to paint both sides with a tweezer is not easy, and I dropped the part at least once. Since we are building and painting two F4F-3 U.S. Navy aircraft, you may see the same pieces in our videos in this section being painted twice. In all cases, we are spraying the small assemblies and parts at 20 to 24 psi, while the larger parts, the wings, the fuselage, and the stabilizers, at 30 psi. The pieces here are being painted aluminum for one of the aircraft. Aluminum is being sprayed on the outside of the cowl. Note the paper stuffing inside the cowl protecting the interior green paint that was sprayed earlier. And we're also painting the wheels. Note that the tires on the wheels will be hand painted flat black later on. Next up is the pitted tube, which measures airspeed of the aircraft. This is then followed with the part that attaches the wheel framework to the upper framework in the engine compartment, followed by some other small parts. The landing gear assembly is the last piece we're painting aluminum. Note that this assembly is very fragile. Handle carefully. We are now ready to paint TCP-013 aluminum on the parts we have previously painted black. Again, spraying at 30 psi and going slowly in a back and forth smooth motion, you can see the aluminum appears very bright and shiny. Pre-World War II aircraft had glossy to satin finishes, as the U.S. military at that time was not concerned about camouflaging their equipment. No matter what type of airbrush you are using, cleanup is the same. If it is a siphon feed like you see here, wash out the cup as best you can with the acetone while still attached to the airbrush. Remove the cup. Spray acetone through the airbrush for a few seconds while the exhaust in the spray booth is still on. Place a small amount of acetone in the cup, use a pipe cleaner to clean out the spout, and a Q-tip to clean the inside. Finally, rinse and wipe with a paper towel inside and out. You are now ready for another color if you so desire. The whole process should take no longer than a couple of minutes to complete. Cleaning the airbrush equipment is easy and fast when using Tru-Color paint. Use acetone, which is unscented nail polish remover, for the entire process. This easy to obtain solvent will work extremely well for every color in the Tru-Color paint product lines. If you can get a wash bottle similar to the one we are using in this video, that would be beneficial.